many Japanese learners sooner or later face the same question. What game should I play to immerse myself in Japanese? It sounds like a simple question, but it isn't. Because it's not just about finding a game, it's about finding a game that fits the way you learn and your preferences. Some people want fast action, others want quiet stories. Some people chase challenge and others chase comfort. And when it comes to language learning, those differences matter. Your age, your level of Japanese, your interests, even the way you think, all of it changes what kind of game will teach you best. But if I had to give one answer, one recommendation that balances story, simplicity and soul, it would be Trails in the Sky. It isn't revolutionary or particularly fast, but that's exactly why it works. Trails in the Sky is a story that takes its time. It lets you breathe, it lets you listen. Not just to the dialogue, but to the rhythm of how Japanese feels when people actually speak it. You don't play it for quick dopamine hits. You play it to live in its world, to walk through its towns, to read its newspaper, to talk to people who sound like they could exist. That is what makes Trails in the Sky or the whole Trails series so special. It's not a game that just teaches your vocab. It's a game that, just like Japanese learning, in itself, demands something from you. Patience. And through that patience you start to understand the language in a way no textbook could ever replicate. So, if you're looking for your first true Japanese game, not the easiest and not the flashiest, but the one that feels right, then maybe this is where you start. The Legend of Heroes, Trails in the Sky, or in Japanese, Sora no Kiseki, is a game that even many JRPG fans never really had on their radar, at least not until the newer titles in the series slowly started breaking out of their niche. That quiet momentum eventually led to the remake's release on September 19th, 2025, which finally brought this long-overlooked classic into the public eye. On the surface, the original Trails in the Sky is a slow-paced RPG from another era. Dense dialogue, turn-based combat, and pixelated faces that blink like they're half asleep. But underneath that old-school veneer lies something else entirely. For me, it's like a living novel, but let me explain what I mean by that with a quick preface. I know some people shy away from games that take a long time. The idea of committing to a 100-hour story, or even more, can feel overwhelming, especially when you're just beginning your Japanese journey. And Trails isn't a small series either. With 13 mainline titles and counting, it can feel like standing at the base of a mountain that never ends. But I want to challenge that way of thinking. Because even if you're not into JRPGs, even if you dislike turn-based battles like I do, slow build-ups or massive time investment, I still believe this game deserves your attention. And throughout this video I want to show you why. I started learning Japanese in September 2021, and the very first game I ever played in Japanese was Trails in the Sky. I began playing in April 2022 and finished the game 504 days later with around 81 hours of in-game time. Though that number is hilariously inaccurate. Every lookup, every pause, every moment spent tabbing out a research for a word isn't counted. Realistically, it was probably closer to 200 or even 300 hours. One of the reasons it took me so long was because I had a huge break where I didn't play at all. Yeah, I know, kinda anticlimactic, but it is what it is. Days in general aren't a good way to measure the length of a game. The real measure is how much you grow between the first line of dialogue and the last. I also played the game together with a friend who's learning Japanese too. We went through the story side by side through Discord, looked up words together, laughed at the same moments, struggled at the same walls, and celebrated those tiny breakthroughs that feel like mountains when you're learning a language. So, before you decide this game isn't for you, just trust me for a while. Let me show you what makes Trails in the Sky so special, not just as a game, but as a language experience. The game begins quietly with Estelle, our main protagonist, waiting for her father to return home. A few moments later, he arrives, holding something strange in his arms, wrapped in a blanket. It turns out that inside that blanket is a young wounded boy named Joshua. Shortly after that, the story jumps several years into the future. We now follow Estelle and Joshua as they travel across the country to train to become senior bracers, members of an independent organization that works to maintain peace and protect civilians. During their journey, they slowly uncover a plot to overthrow the monarchy. When you begin the adventure, it starts the way many JRPGs do, with simple errands and small local quests. This early part exists mostly to give players time to breathe, to avoid overwhelming them with the size of the world and the amount of information to take in. So, on the surface, it really looks like Trails in the Sky follows that typical JRPG formula, but in a way it doesn't. One of the first things you notice is that this world isn't built around speed or efficiency. It's built around connection and development. Every town, every NPC, every single conversation feels intentional. The world opens itself to you slowly, not through spectacle or action, but through dialogue and small details that make the setting feel alive. In most games, NPCs are there just to fill the space. You talk to one and he complains about something trivial. You come back an hour later and he's still saying the same thing, as if time never really moved forward for him. The main story progresses, the world changes, but the people don't. They remain frozen in their own little loops. But here, Trails is different. The world and its people grow together. NPCs remember events, they react to what's happening in the story, and they change their opinions as time passes. When you return to a town after several chapters, or just one chapter, the people there talk about what happened while you were gone. It feels like life continued even when you weren't around. And that sense of movement, of time, is what makes the world of Trails feel alive. Not the graphics, not the combat system, but the consistency of emotion. It really feels to me like a real place, inhabited by real people, all moving forward in time just like you. This is one part of what I meant when I said that it's like a living novel for me. It is in every way, from the big story pieces to the small NPC making bread in the local village, a story that evolves through time. And this is also a reason why, from a language learning perspective, Trails is such an unexpectedly perfect game. The dialogue isn't textbook clean or artificially polished. It feels lived and natural. You hear how people actually speak. Characters talk formally when they need to, and casually when they can. Every person has their own rhythm, their own tone, their own little quirks in the way they use Japanese. It's the kind of language that reflects real life. You'll come across overly formal speech, children talking in that honest, unfiltered way, old people reminiscing about times of prosperity, about their youth, about mistakes and regrets from the past. You'll hear conversations about everyday life, music, food, jokes, small talk, and quiet reflections. But according to some of the reviews I watched about the remake, a lot of people mentioned or even complained about the amount of small, seemingly unnecessary and overly long cutscenes. And yeah, the remake is just like the original in that sense. So, I don't want to sound like one of those people who say, just trust me bro, it's getting good in Season 26. But the thing is, it will be worth it if you let it be. Like I said, Trails isn't built on big set pieces or constant action. When we follow our group entering a new city, talking about architecture, the market, the prices, or when they sit down to eat, joke around and drift off in small ramblings. All of that develops not just the characters, but the world itself. And that, in my opinion, is what makes it so special. These small things, these unnecessary details, they always come back later, in big story moments or in small, almost throwaway comments. Of course, if you only care about the main story, you could skip some of it. I also skipped some of it, to be honest. But if you're playing Trails to learn Japanese, to really immerse yourself not only in the language, but in the world it builds, this is where it shines. You'll start picking up vocab from every corner of life. Food, architecture, politics, jokes, everything. And then, when those little details resurface later, you'll realize you understood them naturally. And that's what makes Trails so powerful for learning Japanese. It doesn't just teach you words or grammar, it gives you a sense of how language is used in so many different scenarios. But here's the hook. Trails isn't a game that holds your hand. It's slow, sometimes painfully slow. There are moments where it feels like the story refuses to move forward, like you're just listening to people talk about things that don't matter. And for a lot of players, especially those used to fast pacing or constant reward, that can be frustrating. But that slowness is the exact reason why it's such a good teacher, while being difficult. You'll miss words, sentences, entire scenes, but that's okay. That's exactly how it should be. This struggle is the bridge that needs to be crossed between knowing and understanding. And yes, the grind is real. There are times where motivation just disappears. When the sentences feel endless, the kanji blur together, and every single line feels like work. But that's where Trails shines in a way few games do. Its structure, its rhythm, actually helps you to push through. Because every chapter starts out simple. You walk around, talk to people, pick up small errands. The language feels manageable. Then the difficulty ramps up. Story beats get heavier, the vocab more complex, and suddenly you're thrown into a dense mix of political intrigue, philosophical dialogue, and emotionally charged writing that leaves you both exhausted and fascinated. You'll struggle through those parts, guaranteed. But then, when the chapter ends, it slows down again. You talk to NPCs about simple things. You buy food, read random dialogues that you understand without pausing. And that's where I also realized back then, somewhere along the way, the language seeped into my brain. I didn't notice it happening, but I felt it. The hard parts started to get easier. I still struggled, sure, but it's a different kind of struggle. One that comes with a sense of mastery, a quiet confidence, because I already did the same just a chapter ago. And this cycle of challenge, frustration, understanding and reward is what kept me going. Trails gives the perfect structure to experience this natural progression. Each chapter becomes a reflection of language learning itself. A slow start, a steep climb, and that feeling of victory at the top. That feeling is what makes every moment worth it. The game taught me to embrace the ups and downs, to accept that motivation isn't something that just stays with me, but something that I need to rebuild over and over through small victories. After all this talk and before we enter the final chapter of this video, I want to show how you can make the learning journey with Trails as easy as we can do nowadays. When you buy the remake, where you can by the way also just try out first the demo on Steam, you just need to boot up the game and change the language in the settings. Now you're going to open up Agent, the text hooker we're using for the game. If you don't already have Agent, you just need to download the program on GitHub and install it. With Agent open, you can click and hold the sign and pull it into the game window. Then, beneath it, there you will find the script for the full game. Now when you play the game and text appears, it will automatically be extracted and sent to your clipboard so that you can check all the unknown words in Yomitan. Here we now can upgrade the quality of our immersion one more step, because we're going to use again Game Sentence Miner, which I already talked about in my last video. So if you're missing some tools, just check out my previous video. But here it's the same, just like with Agent. If you don't already have it, download and follow the easy setup. At the end, the program does nearly everything for you, so it's really not all that complicated. Now that the game is running, which is connected to Agent, the extracted text will appear on the text hooker page, which Game Sentence Miner will automatically open after starting the program. I really recommend the setup. You don't just have a dedicated page where you can also quickly check the previous sentences once again, but Game Sentence Miner will, like I explained in my previous video, also add the sound as well as a screenshot from the exact moment the word appeared when you create a new Anki card. On top of that, Game Sentence Miner has an awesome stats page where you can see your progress and see how much you've read, which can boost your motivation as well as the feeling of progress. Next we're gonna talk about the original, if you decide to play the original instead of the remake. The Steam version of the original unfortunately only has the English text as well as the English voice, but as always there are ways to change that. So, in order to fix this, we on the one hand need to download the script as well as the voice files and combine them. But this is not that complicated, trust me. First, you need to go to GitHub and download the SkyInstaller. This program is really nice, because it helps us to get the voice script as well as the voice files in one click. This was, to be honest, much more difficult when I started to write this script, but I found this program just a day before I finished the video, so I changed my script to incorporate the easier version. So, after you downloaded SkyInstaller, make sure that Trails in the Sky is downloaded. Then run SkyInstaller and just click Install to Steam version. While we are downloading and installing, we switch to this Reddit page. Oh, and by the way, all the links are in the correct order in the description. So, here on the Reddit page, we're gonna click the first link and download both files. There, we then follow the instructions from the previous Reddit page. We're gonna extract all the files, and we're gonna move those to the game folder, where we then execute all the CMD files. After this, we're gonna open the config.exe, where we're gonna disable the high resolution text. Then, to enable the Japanese UI, if you want, you need to create an empty file in the folder DLL, which is named lang_jpn.dll. After this, we're gonna download the final file from this Google Drive. This is another file which a friendly community member uploaded some years ago on Reddit. The reason we are also gonna download this file is because normally you can't use the Japanese script while also using the Japanese voices. But with this file, it enables the bridge between both and you can use them at the same time. After downloading this folder, you're going to go into the voice folder from the game and find the Sina folder. This you can now rename to Sina_eng or whatever you want. Then you just need to insert the Sina folder from the Google Drive into the voice folder. That's it, we're done. Now the game should have Japanese text as well as Japanese voice acting. And with this now you can either decide to play the remake or the original. Also, those steps that I just showed you are always the same if you want to do the same procedure for the second or third game of the trilogy. So, in a broad sense, Japanese is of course about memorizing words, but Trails showed me that the environment dictates how easy it is. When you're fully immersed in the world, and you're pushing through confusion, boredom, curiosity and joy, until the words stop feeling foreign and they start to feel natural, then the immersion works just like it should. Maybe for you it won't be Trails in the Sky. Maybe it will be something completely different. A manga that pulls you in, an anime that makes you feel something, or a book that just clicks. It doesn't really matter what it is. It gave me a space where the language had weight, where the words weren't just words, but parts of people, emotions and lives. And that's the magic of immersion. It doesn't ask for perfection, it asks for time. It asks you to care enough to stay, to sit in the unknown and slowly build understanding through experience. Just like Estelle and Joshua in the story. It's not fast, it's not easy, and it's definitely not always fun. But it's real. If there's one thing I want you to take from all of this, it's this. Try out this game or find your own trails. Find that one story, that one experience that keeps you coming back. Not because you should, but because you want to. Let the language confuse you, move you, and teach you.